1290 to 1320. Jalaluddin Khilji, 1290 1296. The founder of the Khilji dynasty was Jalaluddin Khilji. He was the 70 years old when he came to power. He was the generous and the lenient. The leniency was misunderstood as the weakness. Malik Sazu, nephew of the Balban, was allowed to remain the governor of Kara. In 1292, when the Malik Sazu the revolt for the second time, he was replaced by his son-in-law Alauddin Khilji. In 1296, Alauddin Khilji treacherously and murdered his father-in-law Jalaluddin Khilji and usurped the throne of Delhi. Alauddin Khilji, 1296 to 1316. The Alauddin Khilji was convinced that the general prosperity of the nobles, intermarriage between the noble families, the uh, inefficient spy system, and the drinking liquor were the basis, the reasons for the revolutions. Therefore, he the first for the ordinance, he the confiscate the prosperity of the nobles. The intelligence The intelligence system was the reconnaissance and all the secret activities of the nobles were immediately reported to the Sultan. The republic of the liquor and the drugs was totally in the east of the social gathering and the festivals without the permissions of the Sultan were forbidden. By such the Hasta Mesures is the reason was the free from revolutions. Reform of the Alauddin Khilji. The Alauddin Khilji had a large standing army and he fed them in cash. He introduced the system of the duck vendings of horses and prepared the Hulia description list of the soldier. The introduction of the paying the salaries in the cash to the soldiers led to the peace regulation. The popularly called as the market reform, Alauddin Khilji established four separate markets in Delhi. One for the grain, another for the cloth, the sugar, then the food, butter and oil, and the third for the horses, the slave and the cattle, and other food for the miscellaneous and committee and regulations were the issue to fix the price of all. The commission at the separate department called the Diwani Rayasat was the create under and the officer for the Naib Riyasat. The harsh punishment was given if the any subscriber and the SARS at the higher prices for the diet to the seat by the using the false double in the service. He was the first Sultan of the Delhi who orders for the measurement of land. Even the big landlord could not escape for the paying land tax. Land revenue was the collect in the cash in the order to enable the Sultan to pay the soldier in cash. Is the land revenue the reform the provide by the basis for the future reform of the Sher Shah and Akbar. Military campaign. Alauddin Khilji sent his army 6 times against the Mongols. The military conquest of Alauddin Khilji included his the expedition against the Gujarat, Mewar, and the Deccan. He sent the Nusrat Khan and the Ulugh Khan to the capture Gujarat in 1299. Kapur A. The Kapur A. Inouye was taken to Delhi, and later he was made the Malik Naib military the commander. Then in the 1301 Alauddin marched against the Ranthambore, and after the 3 month siege it fell. The Rajput Amanda Committee Jauhar or self-immolation Alauddin next turned against the Chittor. In 1303, Alauddin stormed the Chittor fort. The Raja Ratan Singh and his the soldier for the valiantry, but submitted the Rajput women, including the Padmani. Rani Padmani the performed the Jauhar. This Padmani episode was the graphical mentioned in the book Padmavat, Padmavat written by Jayasi. Padmavat written by Jayasi. Alauddin Khilji's greatest achievement was the conquest of the Deccan and the far south. His the army under the Malik Kafur. The campaign resulted in the victory against the Idavas of Devagiri, Kakatiyasas or the Warangal, Hoysalas of Dorasamudra and the Pandyas of Madurai. Alauddin Khilji died. Alauddin Khilji died in 1316, 1316. Although the Sultan was the illiterate, the patroness poet like the Amir Khusro and the Amir Hassan. He also built the famous gateway known as Alai Darwaza. Alai Darwaza and the construct the new capital at Siri. Mubarak Shah and the Khusru Shah were the successor of the Alauddin Khilji. Ghazi Malik, the governor of the Dipalpur, killed the Sultan Khusru Shah and ascended the throne of Delhi under the title of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq in 1320. The Tughlaq dynasty 1322 1440 1414 13202 1414. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq 1321 to 1325. He found the city of Tughlaq near Delhi. Ghiyasuddin attempted to improve the finance of the state and prepared policy to encourage agriculture. Ghiyasuddin continued the system of the Dak and the Zehra instituted by the Alauddin. Ulugh Khan was said to have uh, treacherously killed his father and ascended the throne with the title Muhammad bin Tughlaq in 1325. Muhammad bin Tughlaq 1325 to 1351. Estimate of the Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He was the very attractive character in the history of the medieval India owing to his ambitious schemes and the novel experiment. His enterprise and the novel experiment ended in the scheme and the novel uh, miserable failures become they were the old father ahead of their time. He was very tolerant in religion matter. It maintained the diplomatic relations with far of the countries like Egypt, China, and Iran. Contemporary writers like the Isami, Barani, and IBN and Batuta were the unable to the give a correct picture about his the personality, but the Muhammad bin Taghlib was the only Delhi Sultan who had received a comprehensive literary and a religion and a philosophical education. Field project. He began his career with the expedition of the Khurasan. The ultimate the project was the uh, abandoned as and the unrealistic scheme, and the army was the disband. It led to either uh, tremendous financial loss or to the state the exchequer. He that did not takes into the account the geographical and the transportation difficulties. He is the father. The administrative measure was to the enhance the land tax in the Ganga Yamuna Dove. That led to the widespread the disconnect as it was the introduced at the time when the entire regions was in the grip of the several famine due to the failure of rain. It happened due to the communication gap between the Sultan and the peasant. The Sultan raises the tax from 5 to then the percent. Therefore, the peasant, instead of the paying the tax, abandoned their land and adopt the highway robbery. The tax collector continued to the collect tax by the opposition. It the result in the extensive reports. The next ventures of the Muhammad bin Taghlib was the shifting of the capital of Devagiri, that was the renamed Daulatabad. In 1326 to 27, he the involved almost the wholesale transfer of the population. He thought it would help him to control both North India and the South India. Muhammad wanted to located his the capital in the central part of the empire, and he also wanted to make it the step from the Mughal invention. Every care invention and every care was taken to the provide the compatible travel to the peoples to the new capital. But when some of the people uh, resisted, then transfer, the Sultan ordered the everyone to the shift as the uh, punitive measure without the realizing the suffering curve due to the complete evacuation. Soon the Sultan discovered the unsustainability of the new capital. He ordered the peoples to the shift back to Delhi once more. Daulatabad was the abandoned the largely because he soon found that he could not control North India from the Daulatabad. The order of the going back to the old capital causes much of the distress to the people. Another of his the novel and the daring experiment was the introduced by introductions of the token currency of the bronze coin in 1326 to 30 AD. He was inspired by the similar system the prevailing in Iran and China. The Sultan made this the token coin legal tenders and kept their the value at par with the gold and silver coins. Now the Sultan issued the tanka or rupees of the silver and the copper coins. The people should begin to the manufacture uh, counterfeit of the bronze in the large number as a result. But the money drops out the good money. The trades came to the eastern still, and the business was brilliant. The finally Muhammad Toghle decided to withdraw the token currency. The Sultan readily gave gold and silver coin in the exchange for the bronze coin. The loss to the exchequer was the immense. As a the result, the treasury was the complete empty. Toghle established a separate department of the agriculture called the Diwani the special scheme was the extent to the improved cultivation in the dope. Dope means two rivers. दो रिवर के जो साइड में था वो दोप है. In 1333 to 34 AD, the loans were provided to prison. However, the scheme failed miserably because the man the chosen for the purpose provided to be inexperienced and dishonest. Rebellions. The latter part of the Muhammad bin Toghle regime the witness at the spread of the rebellions by the nobles and the province of the governor. The rebellions of the Hassan Shah resulted in the establishment of the Madurai Sultan. In 1336, the Vijayanagar kingdoms was the found. In 1346, Bahmani kingdoms was established. The governor of Oud, Multan the Sindh, revolt against the authority of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq died on March 20, 1351. Badoni observed and saw the king was the freed from his the people and they from the king. Firoz Shah Tughlaq 1351 to 1388 AD. After the death of Muhammad bin Tughlaq in 1351, his the father cousin the Firoz Tughlaq had been the chosen as the Sultan by the nobles. He appointed Khan I Jahan Makbal, the Telugu Brahmin convert as the Wazir by Prime Minister. The Wazir had the Sultan in his the administration and the maintained the prestige of the Sultans during this period. Firoz Shah Tughlaq tried to the safeguard his the authority over North India instead of the resulting his the authority over the Deccan and South India. The reign of the Firoz Tughlaq was more than notable for his administration. It strictly followed the advice the ulemas in the running the administration. In the preset the nobles and the assured hereditary the succession to their properties. Thus the Ikta system was not only the revived but also it was made the hereditary as per the Islamic law. He the levied the taxes. Jazia was the strictly imposed on the non-Muslim. He was the first sultan to the impose the irrigation tax, but at the same time he the dug irrigation, the canals and wells. The new department called the Diwani-e Khairat was the created to take care of the orphans and the widow, and the free hospital and the marriage branch for the poor Muslim were also the established. As he was the guide by the ulemas, he was the uh, intolerant toward the Shia Muslim and Sufis. He that treated the Hindus as second grade the citizens and imposed the jizya. Also, he increased the number of the slaves by the capturing the defected soldier and young person, and his the regained the number of slaves had the increased to 1,80,000. When the Firoz died in 1388, the struggle for the power between the Sultan and the nobles started once again. The Toghlaq dynasty after Firoz Shah Toghlaq. His the successor were weak. The last Toghlaq ruler, Nasiruddin Muhammad Shah, 1394 to 1412 AD, the faced the invention of Taimur, the great Mughal leader of the Central Asia in 1398. He then removed the Toghlaq from Delhi. It ultimately led to new dynasty known as the Soyad dynasty. The Soyad dynasty in 1414 to 1451 AD. The Soyad dynasty ruled for about 37 years. There were the four rulers, neither the political nor the culturally. The Soyad dynasty met any the went well the contribution to the medieval history of India. They had the four kings Khazir Khan and 1414 to 1421, Mubarak Shah 1421 to 1434, Muhammad Shah 1434 to 1445, and Alauddin Alam Shah 1445 to 1451. The Lodi dynasty 1451 to 1526. Bahlol Lodi 1451 to 88 AD. He the found the rule of the Lodi dynasty by usurping the throne from the last of the Sayyid rulers. He conquered the territories around Delhi, and after the continuous war, he the succeeded in the extending his the authority over the Jaunpur, Riwal, Itawa, Mewar, and the Sambhal, Gwalior, etc. He was the king and the general generous ruler. He was the always the prepared to help his subject, though he was the himself the illiterate. He the extent his the patroness to art and the learning. He died in 1488. Sikandar Lodi, 1489 to 1517 AD. Sikandar Lodi was the son of the Bahlol Lodi who the conquered the Bihar and western Bengal. He the found the Agra city. He the shifted his the capital from Delhi to Agra. Sikandar was the fanatical Muslim and he the broke the scared the image of the Jaulamukhi temple at Nagarkot of the Himachal Pradesh and ordered the temples of Mathura to be the destroyed. Note, he was the first sultan to break the temple out the religion purpose. They took the keen its interest in the development of the agriculture. He introduced the Ghazi I Sikandar was Sikandar yard for the measuring the cultivated field. Ibrahim Lodi, 1570 to 1526 AD. He was the last king of the Lodi dynasty and the last sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. He was the son of the Sikandar Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi, he the governor of Punjab, invited the Babur from the Central Asia to overthrow Ibrahim Lodi. Babur accepted the offer and inflicted the crushing defeat on Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat in 1526. The first battle of Panipat in 1526. No Sultan of India except the Sultan Ibrahim had been killed on the battlefield. The main causes of the decline of the Delhi Sultanate, despoting and the military types of government which did not have the confidence of the people. Degeneration of Delhi Sultanate, specifically the old project of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, incompetence of the Firoz Tughlaq, war of succession as there was no fixed law for it like the eldest son with the acquiring throne. Invasion of the Timur had the weakened the empire. Administration. Central government. The office of the Sultan was the most important in the administrative system. He was the ultimate authority for the military, legal, and the political activities. The Sultan was the assisted by the number of the department and official in his the administration. The post of the naib was the most powerful one. Next to him was the wazir, who was the heading the finance department called the Diwani Uzarat. The military department was the called the Diwani Aras. It was the headed by the Aris Aida Mamulik. He was the responsible for the recruiting the soldier and the administrating the military department. He Sultan the himself was the commander in the chief of the army. The military department was the first set up by the Balban and was the further improved by the Alauddin Khilji. Diwani, the result was at the Department of the Religions Affairs. It was the headed by the chief Sardar Grant were the matter by the department for the construction and the maintenance of the mosque, troops, and the madrasa. The head of the judicial department was the uh, Qazi, chief Qazi, and the Muslim personal law of the Sharia was the follow in the civil matter. The Hindus were the governed by their own the personal law, and they are the causes were the disbanded by the village the panchayat. The criminal law was the based on the rules and the regulation made by the sultanas. The department of the correspondence was the called Diwani Insha. All the correspondence between the ruled and the official was the doled owed by this the department. Local administration. The provinces under the Delhi Sultanate were the called the Iktas. The provinces were the divided into the Shias, and the next division was the Parnaga. The Sheikh was under the control of the Sheikhdar. The Parnaga, the composition is the number of the villages as was the headed by the Amil. The village the renamed the basics unit of the admission. The village the headman was the known as the Mukaddaman or the Saudri. Saudri the village the accountant was the called the Patwari.